once again, man. Lonesome up. Yeah, you see, today, Saturday, this, you know, more and people them log on, because I see things like this now, them thing, me the man, most of the time, me the man, me just sit down and just study, because you have to study the whole world when and them thing there, you know. And the man, them keep back black people, you know, over the centuries and them thing there, you know. But we're going in America, when they're supposed to go on and you have enough black people, them there and them, you know, they better fight themselves and fight against themselves and them thing there. Well, I can show the documentary and show them the first Black Wall Street, or black people used to prosper, you know. And this is a design to keep down, you know, black people, and then make it seems like black people now want nothing good at them motless and thing. Just watch this, you know. You see me I say? Watch her.
Supposed to be alive, but God let me here for a purpose. I had an experience. I had never met anyone that had the same.
We had a neighborhood barber shop, so I went over and got a haircut, and about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the barber was cutting my hair, and one barber said to the other one, said, hurry up and finish up on that kid's hair, and let's go down on the railroad tracks and see if we can shoot some niggers.
We opened the window so we could hang out and look, and it smelled a terrible smell. Did they burn bodies?
We opened the first grave, looked down, and there were the bodies of 3 black men. We just moved down real quick, and proceeded to go to the next grave, which is much larger, and opened it, and there was at least 4 bodies in that grave. They were all just piled in there.
That night, just about dusk, up on Reservoir Hill, which was just south of the house, there's a great big cross burning. And all these people up there it was a Klan, is what they were, because we could see them from our house. And they was burning this cross, and we could hear people crying and screaming.
At the turn of the 20th century, Tulsa, Oklahoma, had the richest per capita wealth of any place on earth. It was dubbed the oil capital of the world, the Magic City, and the City of Dreams. Among those who traveled to Tulsa was a young teacher named Mary Parrish.
I came to Tulsa from Rochester, New York in 1918. I had heard of the town since girlhood and the many opportunities to make money. But I came because of the wonderful cooperation I observed among our people, especially among our businessmen and women. Every face seemed to wear a smile. After spending years of struggling and sacrifice, people had begun to look upon Tulsa as the Negro metropolis of the Southwest. Going north to Archer Street for 2 or more blocks, one could see nothing but Negro businesses. Going east, you would behold Greenwood Avenue, the Negroes' Wall Street. there were homes of beauty and splendor, and the schools and churches were well attended. It was a city within a city, and some malicious newspapers took pride in referring to it as Little Africa.
The readings from that time that were racist, inspired by racists, from the National Guard to the Klan controlling the legislature, when they spoke of blacks were to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. And they did. They did. The money in my community didn't turn over the traditional 3 or 4 times. It turned over 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times. That was legitimate and illegitimate monies to be made that fueled that economy. So my community was the Vegas of the 20. It was roaring.
I can remember when I was a child that the Ku Klux Klan, and there were probably, in my opinion, a couple thousand of them that would all robe up with their hoods on and their gowns and all, and women and men and children. They had little children, maybe 3 feet high. They were all robed up and holding on to somebody's hand. They would march too. Usually they would form up on about 7th Street and Main in there someplace, and then the police would clear all of the cars off of Main Street, and they would march and they would fill the street from curb to curb, and it seemed like thousands of them. There might have been 2,000, I don't know, I don't remember.
We used to go up and watch the Ku Klux Klan in their rally on top of Standpipe Hill. And they were in their white robes and their pointed cap attire. And we used to just watch them. They had their torches burning and having a meeting. We knew not to get too close to them.
The Klan was founded in 1865 to intimidate Southern blacks in the post-Civil War South. The reign of terror lasted 15 years, but as the movement died out, a legend, if not a lie, remained. Aging Civil War veterans told heroic stories of how the Klan had saved the South from domination by Negroes and Northern carpetbaggers. By 1915, there was no Klan in America. 3 months later, an extraordinary event took place that would resurrect the Klan and its legend. The event was the release of a pioneering motion picture, D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation. It was based on a best-selling book called The Klansman. In many cases, Klan recruitment ads ran next to movie ads. Birth of a Nation played to 50 million people, approximately half of the population of the United States. It played across Oklahoma with a tremendous run in Tulsa.
The Birth of a Nation stimulated the organization of the Ku Klux Klan, which in turn maintained a high profile and stirred up many whites to acts of recrimination and of savagery in this period.
When you have thousands of white men coming back from World War I, bringing back Souvenir Lewis, Spandau, and Browning submachine guns, and a variety of other weapons that they brought back from the battlefield. And then they can't find jobs. And the power structure within the city at that time, as was occurring in other cities, would enlist them in the Ku Klux Klan and blame their problems on Jews, African Americans, and Catholics. It was a simple answer to a complex problem for simple people. Meanwhile, they could stand in downtown Tulsa and look at the mansions in Little Africa, in the Black Wall Street.
Black people did have money and them work together them time, yeah. Them a seal work together, yeah.
It was a typical Monday morning for a 19-year-old black man named Dick Rowland. He worked as a bootblack in the downtown area. Because there was no restroom facilities, Rowland had permission to use the restroom on the top floor of the Drexel building. In order to reach the top floor, he had to use the elevator.
Dick Rowland didn't look down when he went to get on the elevator, and therefore, because of the unevenness of the two floors, he stumbled and started falling, and he reached out to keep break his fall and touched his operator, and she hollered rape. And so
the operator, the man, and touching her, shall I rape, you know?
Arrested Dick Rowland about 10 o'clock in the morning, and that afternoon the Tribune came out and told what happened in the Blue Building. And after they told what was going to happen, then they said, it looks like there will be a lynching in Tulsa tonight.
And told of an attempted assault upon a poor orphan girl who worked as an elevator operator to pay her way through college. The article said that she had scratches on her hands and face. In fact, she was not an orphan. She had deserted her husband in Kansas City and had been served with divorce papers in Tulsa 2 months before. And she was neither scratched nor had torn clothes.
The real incident isn't the incident in the elevator. The real incident is what happens over at the offices of the Tulsa Tribune, which was the city's daily afternoon newspaper. And we know there were a couple articles in it that talked about what happened at the Drexel. One was a front page article that said something like "Nab Negro for attacking girl in elevator." But there was a second.
The man never attacked no girl, you know. Don't just use that kind of man, wash up the place.
Negro tonight. We don't know really what it said, but we do know from white sources, from black sources, from government officials and others, that there was an article there suggesting that the lynch mob should gather downtown and to lynch Dick Rowland.
Talk of the lynching was prevalent throughout the city, and by evening, white crowds began to form around the courthouse. A burning cross was visible on Standpipe Hill, which overlooked North Tulsa and Greenwood. The sheriff took the elevator to the jail, located on the top floor of the courthouse, and set up a barricade. In Greenwood, it was believed that a lynching was imminent, and mob rule without legal consequences was not without precedent in Tulsa. A few months before, a lynch mob had taken accused killer one Ray Belton from the Tulsa jail. A mile-long procession of cars escorted him to a tree on a county road where he was lynched. Local police officers directed traffic. 3 months later, in the town of Holdenville, 70 miles away, a white mob took a black man from the county jail, hanged him from a telephone pole, and riddled his body with bullets. He was accused of attacking a white woman. In Wagner, 30 miles from Tulsa, another lynching took place.
A white man down in Wagner, Oklahoma, had asked a colored girl for sex. She told him her price. He had sex and he didn't want to pay her. He didn't pay her. She took out a knife and cut his throat and killed him. So they arrested her. They lynched her. And then they drug her body up and down Main Street of Wagner, Oklahoma. And the Negroes in the community had decided there will not be a lynching in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma, it is not considered a crime for a man to kill a Negro.
You hear that? No crime to kill a Negro.
Lynchings in Oklahoma. There is yet to be chronicled the instance where any individual has paid a legal penalty or where an officer has been removed from office for failure to protect the life of his prisoners from criminal violence.
And this is one of the place up to today. That's a police advance in America today.
Any considerable number of men together to take a prisoner from the hands of an officer and inflict the penalty of death. Carlos Weekly, June 1921. Most of the news that people received came from their newspapers. It's incredible to look at the content of those newspapers and realize that there was a constant barrage of articles appearing concerning lynchings of black people. This was over and over and over again. In fact, 2 black people a week were being lynched in America at this time.
The evening being a pleasant one, my little girl had not retired but was watching the people from the window. Occasionally she would call to me, "Mother, look at the cars full of people." I would reply, "Baby, do not disturb me when I read." Finally she said, "Mother, I see men with guns." Then I ran to the window and looked out. There I saw many people gathered in little squads talking excitedly. Going downstairs to the street, I was told of the threatened lynching and that some of our group were going to give added protection to the boy. I am told that this little bunch of black men marched up to the jail where there were already over 500 white men gathered, and that this number will soon swell to over 1,000. Someone fired a stray shot, and to use the expression of General Grant, all hell broke loose.
The first one was shot on Main Street, right in front of the biggest picture palace. His falling brought the crowd to a halt. They just stood and looked at him. 3 or 4 ambulances clanged down to the place, but the crowd turned on them and showed their guns. One said, "Don't touch the blankety blank." The ambulance workers didn't quite know what to do, so they turned off their engines and just stood there, blocking the street. Then there was a whoop a block away. Some of the Negroes had tried to organize and get their friend. The crowd surged forward, trampling the man on the sidewalk who was about dead. He lay, writhing on the sidewalk under a billboard from which smiled winsomely the face of Mary Pickford, America's sweetheart.
The atmosphere was festive as the police department commissioned 500 special deputies. These could best be described as Klan deputies. The only prerequisite was that they must be white. Most were not even asked their names or addresses. One black man was erroneously sworn in.
It occurred to me I could get sworn in as one of the special deputies. It was easy. My skin was apparently white, and that was enough. After some 50 or 60 of us had been sworn in, a villainous-looking man remarked casually, even with a note of happiness in his voice, "Now you can go out and shoot any nigger you see, and the law will be behind you."
The Ku Klux Klan mob, having largely been made up of veterans, began to militarily organize themselves. And they divided down into squads and ran a skirmish line along Archer.
After watching the men unload on First Street, where we could see them from our windows, we heard such a buzz and noise that on running to the door to get a better view of what was going on, the sights our eyes beheld made our poor hearts stand still for a moment. There was a great shadow in the sky, and upon a second look, we discerned that this cloud was caused by fast approaching airplanes. It then dawned upon us that the enemy had organized in the night and was invading our district, the same as the Germans invaded France and Belgium. Looking south out of the window of what Then was the Woods building. We saw carloads of men with rifles unloading up near First Street. Then the truth dawned upon us that our men were fighting in vain to hold their dear Greenwood, Mary Parish.
It's a holy castle, man. Holy castle, man. Kill out folks back, man.
The whites were given a signal by a whistle, and the outrage took place. All of this happened while innocent Negroes were slumbering and did not have the least idea they would fall victims to such brutality. At the sound of another whistle, more than a dozen aeroplanes went up and began to drop turpentine balls on the Negro residences, while 5,000 whites with machine guns and other deadly weapons fired in all directions. Negro men, women, and children began making haste to flee to safety, but to no avail, as they were met on all sides with volleys of shot. They were killed in great numbers as they ran trying to flee to safety. Torchlights were used to burn up the Negro settlement, and in the meantime they used large trucks loading up pianos, victrolas, and other articles that were left in the Negro homes. A.H.
The people that better off in America, they must stop and hold back people long time.
Everything moving and of value. Every bit of money found on their persons was taken. Masonic rings were removed from the fingers, watches and chains from their persons. In fact, everything of a material nature preparatory to the cruel initiation which had not yet ended was taken from them. And so, penniless, destitute condition, they were corralled first one place and another. G.A. Grand.
Once they framed that skirmish line, they marched into the north side of the downtown area, and they shot everybody they could find. They burned every home, but not before looting it first. They burned every business. They burned every car. They burned everything, systematically, block by block, house by house. They went all the way through the city. At the same time, the telephone lines were cut, the telegraph lines were cut, and the railroad leading into Tulsa was blockaded. There was no way to communicate what was going on in Tulsa with anybody else because it was very easy to cut the city off. And that's exactly what the mayor and the city commission and the Ku Klux Klan wanted. Because it gave them the opportunity to clean out the entire African-American area of the city without being interfered with. And they were doing it very systematically.
The mob would not permit firemen to battle the blaze. They looted stores and pawn shops for guns and ammunition, but they also took walking suits, tools, tires, and jewelry. Carloads of whites would occasionally venture into the black area, shooting indiscriminately.
And I said to my mother, I said, Mama, we better get out of here because the white folks are really tearing up jacks. Because they're burning the places and killing people, and they're going to kill us.
And we were sitting out when the people kept running. They just open the gate and come on through and go on out the back. And Mama said, what are you people running for? You don't know where you're going? They said, no, they're killing over, they're burning the town down over the hill.
The technique varied with different groups of the mob, but the general procedure was to go up to a door and put a gun against the lock and blow it off. The flimsy doors would have smashed easily enough, but this was gun night. Once inside the cabin, everything breakable was broken. Trunks, bureau drawers torn open, pictures and telephones wrenched off the walls and trampled. They didn't often find anyone in the houses, because by now the blacks were scurrying ahead of the horror out into the country beyond the town. But sometimes they did find someone with whom they dealt. When they had smashed enough, they scattered around with kerosene and threw some lighted matches into the mess. If this particular cabin didn't burn well, it would be reset presently by the blaze of the one next door. The houses the mob set fire to without breaking in first were really the most unlucky. because sometimes there were people in the panic, paralyzed, people who didn't realize with all the noise and fright that the house was on fire, not until it was too late to get out.
There's a black veteran who could not believe that this mob would kill a veteran. And as the mob got closer to his home, he put on his uniform and stood out in the front yard at attention. The mob killed him and burned his house.
In a frenzy of destruction and violence, black corpses were tied to the bumpers of automobiles and dragged through the Greenwood district, while bullets were fired into their bodies. Some bodies were hoisted on telephone poles. Another couple was murdered returning from church.
People who are successful and work together
was summarily executed. Enterprising entrepreneurs snapped pictures of the grisly scenes to be sold later as postcards entitled "Running the Negro Out of Tulsa." Death would come easily. Even a defiant glance at a camera could result in instant execution. America's most renowned black surgeon and past president of the State Medical Association, Dr. A.C. Jackson, was shot by a white teenager as he held his hands above his head. He was not killed instantly. His body was thrown into a truck and he was dumped at the convention center, where after hours of suffering without medical attention, he bled to death.
Cars began to drive slowly along their street.
Doctor, that's enough. Put on doctor, them mash up black people, man. Mash up Black Wall Street, man.
Probably not to interfere with their rifle games. And the niggers in these houses, they would shout. The gaping children were called in hastily from the curbs. Didn't seem a very educational sight. Not a very safe one. After the first car or so, people sent their servants down in the cellar or up in the attic and waited.
Then the horde of ruffians went down Detroit, looting those beautiful homes of everything valuable and burning them. Machine guns just shattered the walls of the homes. The fire department came out and protected the white homes on the west side of the street. Men and women with torches and women with shopping bags continued their looting and burning of Negro homes.
Well, all the white, all the women, them involved, you know. So them man a shoot, they can shoot the people, them and take away everything. And then the woman, them a collect.
And she put us under the bed when she saw them coming. My older sister got under first, and then it was my younger sister, and then my brother, and then they pulled me under the bed. Now by this time, the people were coming in, they had torches in their hands. We could see their feet from under the bed. And one stepped on my finger, and as I went to scream, my sister put her hand over my mouth. I don't know today as to what would have happened had they heard us under the bed. They came in and they set the curtains on fire, set our house on fire, and then went out the door, and my mother got us from under the bed. I will always remember that.
People them not chopping them in a
There was the son of a cook in our street. Around 9 o'clock, the man he worked for came and asked for Hattie. He was in a car with some other men. It seemed that the boy thought he ought to get to his job. Before he knew it, he'd been caught in the fighting around the railroad tracks and crawled under a freight car to hide. Someone went in after him and shot him with a pistol. Now that things were quieting down a little, he was lying in the town hall where the militia were assembling the blacks. But his employer was afraid he wouldn't live many more hours. If Hattie wanted to see the boy, he said, he would take her down and look out for her. But she was afraid to go. He couldn't blame her, really. Some of the house Negroes who had allowed themselves to be put in those wandering cars and escorted to the safety of the town hall had been shot at as they drove through the streets. It wasn't the ride an old woman wanted to undertake.
even to see her boy alive. The boy's boss understood. He went back himself and got a doctor and stayed with the boy till he died.
The burning of that flesh, you could smell. It was horrible. And then those crosses burning up on the reservoir hill, which at that time there was no homes up there.
About 7 o'clock, the whites and guards came for the men. Then they took the women and children, promising them safety. After they had the homes vacated, one bunch of whites would come in and loot. Even women with shopping bags would come in.
Woman with shopping bag. For them husband and for them picking and kill black people like nothing. And then them come and get it, drink and everything. Wickedness them thing, man. And them still, and the police them still have them kind of racism business in America. And kill out people. Black life matter, you know. We're not business, you know. Look here. Look at history where it shows.
Where there were throngs of white people, women, men and children, even babies, watching and taking